Okay, thank you for the session. So the first session on data visualization was taken again to say it was from this resource, Royal Statistical Society, and all the material I've taken is from these three authors, Cross, Rennie, and Taran. In the first presentation, I missed out Taran. Apologies. And this is the website. I'm interested to go to that. And they talk, the initial talk we did this, why we do data visualization. That was talk one. Talk two, we did principles of data visualization. Last week we did choosing the different types of data and the relationship of data. That was last week's talk. So today's talk is styling for accessibility and styling for RSS. So I'm going to talk about these two aspects today, right? So that's where we are today. And if anybody is interested, you can go to that website and for the statisticians. For example, if you have a data SPSS and you want to make tables, we just use an SPSS cross tabulation. But behind that cross tabulation, the computer is doing some calculations. That is called code. So like this for drop down menu. Whereas statisticians would like to write the code themselves, because you can get an exact table they really want. So in this website, they give you the codes for each of these graphs and tables and figures, which will be a bit of a bore if I just read the code for presentation. But if you're interested in learning code for each of these graphs and figures, you should go to this website and you can just copy the code and put it in. I mean, sharing of code on presentations too much. The other thing I want to thank is I love this guy, R.K. Lakshman. He was a cartoonist when I was growing up. And every day, the previous day's politics, he'll make a cartoon of. And it's like the Amul cartoons, like the guy making that is really great. So I want to thank him because I enjoyed making these presentations. So with that, today's first part is styling charts for accessibility. Accessibility means for people viewing the graph, it should be accessible to them. So I want you all to look at this graph carefully. I'll give you 30 seconds. On the y-axis is the length of the guinea pig's tooth. Sorry, x-axis. On the y-axis is the dose of different dose of vitamin C. It could be given as orange juice as ascorbic acid. So just look at this graph for some time. Okay. This is the length of the tooth. This is different doses of vitamin C given by two different methods. So the first thing to notice, both of these are same graphs. The graph on my left and my right are same. Okay, which is more clear. Some people think this is. So the principle is you have to choose your colors carefully to make contrast. So choice of color. What else is different? You see that the same thing is there. You can't see what is on the y-axis, but here it's giving you the numbers on the y-axis. What else is different? There's no background, correct? So the clarity becomes more. Anything else? You see here it just says LEN. Because in SPSS, the short form you put len. And you didn't bother to change it to length in the final publication. Here just dose, because that's what was there in SPSS. Here they've taken off dosage, milligram per day, tooth length. One more. Yeah, labeling is here. And the title label is here. But there is no title label here, it's just a graph. Then yes, the color coded title label. One more. Yeah, they remove the background. One more. Yes, you have given. What about the size of this? Or this, or this, or this, and the size here? Font size is bigger. So these three things make the graph suddenly look more readable. So it's the colors which are different. These are called annotations. This number 26. Change of font size and the informative labels also make the graph more visible. So we are going to go to each of these principles in the next 10 minutes. So because of this graph is, the right side graph is easier to interpret. Okay, now another principle about colors. We're going to talk about colors for the next 5 minutes. This on my right or on the viewer's left is different cars, and this is on the x-axis is the engine capacity, small capacity engine, big capacity engines, and these are the different, and the y-axis are different types of cars, and they have colored each particular car as a different color. In this, they put all same color. So just look at this for 15 seconds. So choice of colors is very important. You have to choose colors when you're making a graph very correct. The correct color can emphasize your story. What do you feel? Do we really need color? When I was growing up, we used to have these toy cars, like 1.5 cutie cars, we used to play with the cars. And everybody in India's favorite car was Maserati Polo. Now it's no longer there. So if I want to compare the engine capacity of Maserati Polo with other cars, which of these graphs is better? See, multiple colors did not help me in that story which I was trying to tell. So depending on the story I'm trying to tell, I must choose colors or not choose colors. So actually these colors are duplicating the same number. Whatever is Cadillac 3 put one color. So we are actually, multiple colors are simply duplicating the y-axis. The color is duplicating the y-axis. So if I'm trying to compare Maserati Polo, bigger suspension, smaller displacement engines, this graph is actually better. So somebody may think, oh, that's very colorful and nice. But I don't know where is Maserati Polo in this picture, unless I put an arrow and say, this is the one I'm trying to tell a story about. So colors are important. Okay. Now, have you been a giant wheel? Sometimes we go to these fairs and be giant wheel. We call Ferris wheel. So there's a diameter of the Ferris wheel and there's a height of the Ferris wheel. And there's two graphs here. Japan is in green, US is in red. There's before and after, or there's two types of ways of looking at the graph. Let's look at these two graphs. There's a slight difference in the two graphs. What do you notice? This has got triangles. So this has only got dots. This side has dots and triangles. So it's sometimes not useful to only rely on colors to distinguish. You can use different shapes and colors to distinguish. So software will allow you to do anything. So you must try out these different things and things. Does color alone accomplish what I want, or should I use some shapes as well? So despite this, color is an important thing. It can distinguish between categories. It can show changes in values also. I'll show you now. So if you decide to use colors, you must decide which colors you're going to use. The next question is, what color to use? Okay. So types of color palettes. There are three types of color palette. Palette is like a painter, you said color palette. Three types are there. So you must choose the color depending on what data you use. Like you said, what's the purpose? What are you trying to do? So look at these three different types of color palettes. Generally, these are the three color palettes we use in medicine or biostatistics. Sequential, diverging, or qualitative. So just have a 10-second look at the three different types of patterns. It's patterns. Yeah, so these are three: sequential, diverging, qualitative. So let's look at each one now. Sequential coloring is, these are, remember I told you there are two types of data, qualitative and quantitative. So qualitative data, if there's an order, for example, hot, hotter, very hot chilies, or temperature could be like, or some, that it's not, so you can put this kind of color. You're trying to differentiate if it's ordinal data, you can use this kind of color scheme. same one color, but the density of the color changes. Second is diverging. Suppose we're going camping. The temperature was 0 at night in the desert. It became very hot in the daytime, or it became minus in the night time. So you're trying to show that, hey, in the night time, the temperature went minus, whereas in the daytime, the temperature went high. So very biological phenomenon. Let us say that you're looking at systolic blood pressure and mortality. If the blood pressure is very high, mortality is very high. When the blood pressure systolic is up to 90, the mortality comes down. But below 90, mortality may again go up. So when you're trying to show this kind of diverging data, you can use these kind of diverging color schemes. Yeah. The last one is just purely qualitative. Let's say these are different colors of the shirts people are wearing in this. The order doesn't make a difference, but I want to show different types of colors. So this is called a qualitative place where we use qualitative color schemes. So there are three color schemes: sequential, diverging, and qualitative. And I try to show you where we use which color schemes, right? Okay. Biology. Rods or cones in the eyes look at color. Yes. How many types of cones are there? Small, medium, and large. I mean, it sounds dumb. We look for blue, green, and red. So there are different color blind. Color blind means people whose these cones are not working very well. So this is normal vision. I know that scheme is given there. You can see that red is not seen clearly. That's called deuteranopia. Sometimes it may be mild loss, maybe a severe loss. Okay. Protanopia means the red color is not seen at all. Tritanopia means the blue colors look less. So there are different types of, the commonest color blindness is red-green color blindness. So now, accessible color palette means if you put a graph in a journal or online presentation, and one of your audience members is colorblind, the graph is not accessible to him or her. So you must choose colors which are accessible to people who may also incidentally be colorblind. So choosing a color palette, important to consider. First, for colorblind people, the colors must be quite distinct from each other. That helps them. Okay, we have talked about different types of color blindness. Now, if you go to this particular website, called Complex Color Blindness Simulator, you can put your picture there and see which you have made, how that picture which you have made will appear to a person with different types of color blindness. So you can simply go to this website and see, oh, my graph will be accessible to somebody colorblind or not. So this is a nice website, Complex Colorblind Simulator. Now let's look at these three patterns and see how you will choose for colorblind people. It will be there are sequential, diverging, and qualitative. So diverging and qualitative, distinct hues can be seen. Sorry. Right? You can see distinct hues and you can tell the values apart by the different colors. Sequential, it's using luminosity or brightness of the color. So if you're colorblind, this may in fact be friendly to you because you can make out, it may just be black, gray, light gray, and white. So this may in fact be the most color friendly picture for a colorblind person. Large variability is also okay. So if you have these a very large variability between colors, then probably colorblind people will be able to see your graph. So in graph, in colors, people will talk about luminosity and chroma. Luminosity is how light or dark the color is. Chroma is the purity of the color. So you must think about both of these aspects when you're making a graph. Now there's one more website which is very useful for choosing colors, choosing palettes. And this is one gentleman called Paul Todd. He is a Dutch scientist and he gives very nicely about colors, making graphs. It's a free website so people can have an access to the website. Now, you remember this picture I showed you some time ago? length of the tooth versus the dosage of vitamin C. And there are different colors, and you can see how it will affect different people. So, take for example, deuteranopia means absence of loss of red green is completely gone. Deuteranomally means it's slightly gone. So the same graph will look like this for people who have got deuteranomaly. Protanomaly means absence of red. Tritanopia means blue. So now you must think, oh, okay, I've got this done. So now we'll see these colors, and we'll see that this is how a person with tritanopia will see a graph. This is how a person with protanomaly will see a graph, and completely absent colors will see the same graph. So you must have a clear idea before you put colors in your graph, how they'll see. For example, a normal person will see the color spectrum of light like this. Deuteranopia, the red will become less, the green also will become less. So this is how they'll see. So if you can imagine somebody driving a car, say Rashna is going full speed, and the traffic light is changing from red to green. You may not notice a change of color because the red doesn't look very red, the green doesn't look very green. You may have some other cues. Other people are not going, okay, the property of the color has changed. So people with red-green color blindness, they have an issue. Okay, so colors should be as distinct from each other. Sometimes you submit to a journal color graphs, but the journal will charge you money for the color graph. Then they'll say, we'll put it free black and white. So your color graph will be changed to black and white by the journal. Then you must say, if the same graph was black and white, will the contrast stand out? So you yourself would try out your own color graphs on black and white. Only the same color graph looks reasonably contrast enhanced in black and white, then you should submit to that particular way. Okay, so colors that seem distinct in color may appear indistinguishable in black and white. So be careful of this. Oh, it looks beautiful in red and green and black. But if you just put it in different shades of black, suddenly the contrast is gone. Then colorblind people, or the same thing, you can't afford color and you put it in black and white, all of a sudden your beautiful graph is not very good. Okay, color should match your data. Okay. Stereotypes. What do you say? What do you think this is correct? Colors, Nitish? This is dead, yes or no? And this is men and women. What is your view about the coloring? Nitish agrees. Wearing a pink shirt. I'm glad. So Nitish is good. Don't take the stereotypes. So pink and blue data, pink for women and blue for men. So that is, some people will try to put this to make it look very, I'm very careful. But don't do those kind of stereotypes. No, be clever, but people are very, don't do that anymore. Okay. What is wrong with this? Same color for? Nah. Dead or alive? Same color. The one below? Isn't the color correct color? Hey, look carefully. There's a story in that. What do you say? The choice of color. What's the choice of? What's wrong with the choice of color? If you die, it's a bad outcome. That's usually bad outcomes are put in red color, and good outcomes are put in green. So you can't say I like this color combination. So red is for good and green is for bad. You can't say no, I want to put red is for bad and good and green is for. So you can't choose that. So this color combination is not correct. So you have to put red is for bad, green is for good. So that's what's wrong with this graph. So you have to be really careful about choosing color combination. SPSS especially, you can go and choose any color combination you want and you can keep on doing. Even in R, you can choose any color. You have to think carefully about your color combinations. Checklist. First, minimize the number of colors used. People like to put colors, but minimize the number. Second, make sure that colorblind people can see your colors. Third, the color palette must match your data. In other words, don't put red for good and green for bad. Non-color elements as far as possible. That means shades of black or shades of color. That's the best. Sequential is often a very easy way to show contrast. Remember that Maserati colors? I showed you the car. Just that one single color difference for Maserati, and you can make out that that's the point of my story. Lastly, avoid stereotypes. No, men must be in blue and women must be in what is this? Blue. You don't agree? Good. Okay. Next one. So we finished colors. Next, we are moving on to annotation. Annotation, remember this graph I put earlier? So this 26 is annotations. And the size of the font is also important. So annotations first. Adding annotations means adding text. People wonder what is this fancy word annotation? It's just adding some text. So you can add a comment, you can add clarification. It's basically to help the reader understand what your graph is trying to say. That's what is an annotation. So you can add details, you can even add explanations, highlight an interesting point in the graph, or show how the chart should be interpreted. So many ways annotations can help. But you should not put so much text into a graph that it becomes crowded. So the balance between telling too much of extra text in a graph versus no text in a graph. It should not be distracting. Some text can distract you from the graph. Okay, let's have a look at this common use. So I'll tell some theory in the slide, and the next slide I'll show you the practical part. So you can label points on a line or graph. So if a line graph, you can label it. Or bar graph, like I showed you earlier, you can label 26, 26. You can put the label at the end of the graph or at the beginning of the graph. So let's look at this. You can see that this is time on the x-axis, and this is the price of houses which are condominiums in the y-axis. And you can see as time goes on. Now, if one wanted to understand in March 2016, what is the price of a condo? Actually, you'll have to stop at this last blue triangle and go all the way across and see where it cuts the y-axis. Instead of that, we can just put that point here. This is what I meant by putting, you can put data values at the end of the line. In the beginning, you really don't need to because people can see it quickly. Otherwise, you're telling the reader, now you go and bring your eye all the way here. You're helping the reader by putting some values at the end. Towards the end is more important than more in the beginning. Okay. So in bar charts, you add the value usually near the end of the bar. Same thing for the line. You can put the value here also, but it's easy for interpretation if you put it here. You're comparing 26, 26, 17, 23. You can put 17 and 23 here also, but it helps the reader to understand if you put the values closer to this side. So this, you don't have to look up the values yourself. Okay, now let's look at this. This is a scatter plot. Have they labeled every data point? You can, SPSS will give you a website, input data, every single point, what will happen then? I become very crowded. So you have to choose which are the important data points that you want to highlight. You can delete the other data points. Too many points. You can also highlight outliers. You may say, hey, this particular year there was something going different. You can circle that. Why? It's not following the general trend. It seems to be going up, or this seems to be happening. And you may give an explanation why the outliers were present. So, if you want to say that in the placement of this heart shape, why? Because my story is what happened in March 2016. So then I put some marker to show that my story is March 2016. I'm telling from this perspective what happened before. So you will be careful where you place your annotations and you place your notations. So checklist for annotation. So we finished colors. Now we have finished annotations. So the checklist is if there are outliers in especially scatter plot. One temptation in statistics is remove the outliers. because those are difficult to explain. But actually, in fact, that may be the beginning of new research. You found something which doesn't follow the normal trend. Label those outliers and see that people can understand that those are outliers. Label position should be sensible, keeping at the end or at the beginning. You must be sensibly choosing. Every data point should not be labeled. Then it becomes a very crowded graph. There should be a contrast between the color of the graph and the background. Remember last time there was a blue gray added to that. Some people have a tendency that in a take a photograph, there should be some white space. Some people's photograph is full of everything, but actually that absence of an image contrasts with the person in the image. So don't try to fill up everything. So keep those annotations brief, 26. Just to the point. Don't have too long. So often journals will give you a guideline how they want annotations in their graph. Where will you find that paper? Instructions to the author in the journal. Every journal will have instructions to the author. This is how we want our graph. This is the font size for the graph. This is how we want annotation. That's why nobody goes and reads. Oh, who'll read all that? I have SPSS, I made a graph, submit. Then they'll keep on sending, please change your graph, please change your graph. Or you have to ask a statistician to do that. Then you have to go back and read the statistician and say, please change the graph like this. Instead, in the beginning itself, you would tell the statistician or yourself, this is how I want a graph. That's how it will come out. Now, this is a very good website. The UK government has, for the UK government national service, if you're making a graph, they've got guidelines, how a graph should be done, how annotation should be done. And it gives you all introduction, accessibility, choosing the right chart, publishing chart, formatting charts, different type of charts, testing if your chart fulfills their guidelines. Indian government doesn't have, ICMR doesn't have any guideline on graph. But if you're interested, this particular manual is very good on how to make graphs. Fonts. So we have finished colors, annotation. Now font. Font is the text. Okay. It's again another key component. Some fonts are easier to read. Some fonts are difficult to read. Some fonts look very fancy. Like sometimes you see this number plates of cars, very fancy font, but you can't make out what is the number. Like maybe that's the idea, Police can't make out who's this person because it's very unreadable. People have learning disability and visual disabilities. Older people can't see clearly. Some people have a learning disability. I don't know if you remember this Tare Zameen Par movie, old Amir Khan movie, that the kid is there with all these numbers flying around in the sky. So there are many people with different kinds of learning and visual disabilities. So if you don't choose your font possibly correct font, remember this whole talk is about accessibility. Not for you. You clearly understand your graph. It's for another person reading your graph or picture. It has to be accessible for them. So let's try this. First rule, don't put too many fonts. Some people will have Times New Roman for the first line, Arial for the second line, Calibri for the third line, then Comic Sans for the fourth line. Don't do that. Don't have many fonts. It confuses people with learning disabilities. Maximum 2. So in a presentation, there should not be more than 2 fonts to be used. And there are something called font faces, which I'm going to teach you about now. Next. Unnecessary work for a reader. The reader has to take extra effort. Oh, what is that? What is this? Oh, that's just a change of font. It's not something. So every time you change something, the reader is putting extra effort to read what you have to say. So there should be a contrast between the background and the font. If the font is the same color of background, you can't see the font in the background. So there has to be some contrast as well. This is from the previous advice. So bigger font size, easier to use. For PowerPoint, what should be the size, Rachna? Wrong. 15, 54, 36. Previously, the guideline was 28. Now they say the people in the back of the room to be in a large room should be 36. Most people put 10, 12, 28 is a large size. So the current advice is 36. Generally recommended if you're writing print, suppose you're submitting to a journal, New England Journal. They won't accept 36. 12 is used. MGR University has a strange font request 13. Nobody understands how they came up with it. Yeah, really. If you submit a thesis to MGR University, it is 13. Times New Roman 13. Some person there decided that, for some reason, they decided that's the optimal font size. For presentation, at least 36. So the person in the back of the room should be able to see the font size. Now, families. Like we have different color palettes, there are font families. So there are 3 types. Okay, this is serif family. And the example is Times New Roman. So let me ask the girls, what do you notice about this? Is there something about the T which is funny? Yeah, you see some. At the end of the T, you can see the small thing. That's a style. Serif font will have small strokes at the end or some longer strokes. So you can see that even the N, the bottom of the N, you can see those lines. This is called a serif font. Okay, so this is sans serif, means it doesn't have that. So what is this? Arial is an example of sans serif. So this has a straight F. It doesn't have any of those extra cookie lines or whatever you call them. Sans serif, it doesn't have those extra lines. Third one is monospace. The spacing between the words will be equal. So this I have taken from the net. This is serif. You can see that slight there. I mean, you have to look for the people in the back. You may not be able to see, but at the end of the T, there's one little bit of. So this extra is, this is called a serif font. The same one in sans serif. Now you can see the difference. You may think this is clearer than this, but very often we are using Times New Roman. As many people use a default of that. This is monospace. When you put monospace in space, suddenly you find that some text suddenly everything looks really weird because it has gone into monospace. You can see the spacing between everything is like, and it looks a little different. Right? So there are 3 font families: serif, sans serif, and monospace. Nobody can agree on which is the correct form. So that's the first thing. But in that, we try to learn some principles. Some people say that simple is easy. Simplest is sans serif. Like, for example, Arial. For people with visual impairment, it seems to be the simplest. People with dyslexia, people with difficulty reading and understanding, maybe for them, serif font is easier. So most digital publications, that means online publications, they want it to be in a serif font, such as Times New Roman. Now you can see, everybody can identify T is like that. Difficult to read actually. These decorative lines distract the reader. So somebody with a problem with reading goes, what are the strange things there? Is it T or is it something else? It can be distracting for people. Further, if you look at the TV, it's actually made up of small pixels, right? So even the screen is made up of many pixels put together, it looks like a continuous thing. If you have if you've got a 90-inch TV or 1 more inch screen, you'll actually be able to see that small pixels there. That pixel will further confuse this because it looks a little bit hazy, all these things. So with large screens, pixelation becomes a problem. So you must be careful of that. So now they're saying, why don't you avoid serif font, use a sans serif font for digital publications. Now I'm trying to show the different sans serif fonts. This is how they look in actual. Arial looks like this. Calibri looks like this. And Verdana looks like this. Slight differences. But if you're doing an online presentation, like for your presentation, maybe you could have chosen one of these fonts. I can't say between the 3, I can't really make out, but there's slight differences between the 3 fonts. These are sans serif fonts. Special fonts. Now, dyslexia is a learning disability. So if you go to Microsoft Word, you can choose these fonts. I've chosen this font, Dyslexie and Open Dyslexic. So this is Dyslexie font, how it looks if you choose in Microsoft Word. open dyslexic is this font. So it increases the font weight. Apparently, the font weight is slightly more in the bottom and less at the top. So those people, like remember the Tare, I mean, for movie, if not seeing words are moving about on the screen. That moving about a word becomes less for dyslexic people if you use these open dyslexic and dyslexia font. Now, blind people, they often have braille. You can have braille books. So for them, there is a special one called Atkinson's Hyper Legible. It was made by the Braille Institute of America. So it maximizes the distinct because they have to, based on their field, they have to know what the word is. It's freely available. And this, if you put Atkinson's Hyper Legible in words, this is how it looks. This is actually, well, you may say, oh, what's the difference between this and this? But apparently, a blind person will be able to make out these words better than if they had a braille in that words. So, but it's conflicting. Some people will say, no, Times New Roman is better. Some will say, no, sans serif is better. Okay, so general advice, if you're not sure, stick to sans serif. Okay. Can you tell me in your keyboard some common mistakes you have made? Which things look similar on a keyboard? Which numbers and letters are close by? O and 0, I and L. So some fonts will exaggerate that. So some fonts you can't make out, is it I, is it L, is it 1? Some of them you can clearly make out a difference. So you must choose fonts which exaggerate differences, not make them look similar to each other. Sans serif, unfortunately, everything looks similar. This is capital L. This is lowercase l. This is the number 1. Look very similar, right? So this is Arial. So it's indistinguishable. This is Source Sans Pro. This is Verdana. I. Capital I, small I, and 1. Verdana, capital I, small I, and 1. Looks different. This is I, sorry, not L. I. Okay, so you have to choose a thing which makes a confusion to the reader. This is the kind of fonts that you must choose. Next, bold or italic. So, very often, if you want to emphasize something in a text, you can choose to bold it or italicize it. The general advice is to make it bold. Italicizers are generally considered more difficult to read for people with reading difficulties. So, in fact, bold may be easier to do. Don't have too much bold text, it's not good. But 1 or 2 areas of important words you can bold in a text or graph or figure or table also. Few you can bold because that's what you want to highlight. Capitalized text. One president of a famous country, all his tweets are full of capitals. We won't mention. I'm very happy and some sad words. But that's considered an online bad. It's like saying a bad word. They're shouting at me. How can I online shout at you? Put everything in text. By the way, you didn't do your homework. All in text. Oh. So you know that, right? So capitals should not be used anymore. Instead, bold. Okay. So that's all about this checklist. No single font is supposed to be. Everybody's arguing on better. Some things for text, online publications, at least 12. For digital presentations, for the people in the back to see, 36. Make sure that I and number 1 are distinguishable in that particular font that you choose. People sitting in front will be able to make out, but people in the back or somebody with learning disability will be confused by this. Minimize the number of fonts. Don't have this part in sans serif, this is serif, this is monospace. It will confuse people with learning disabilities. Minimize italics. Sometimes we like to put some things in italics. Minimize that. And uppercase text. Use bold, but use bold sparingly. Every slide should not have a lot of bold material. We're going to something slightly different now. Can anybody explain alt text? General knowledge, it's not to do with medicine. alt text. Have you ever traveled in a car or you had a Google reader reading a document to you? There's an article and you can play a particular button and some computerized voice will read the whole article to you. So for visually impaired people, very often that's a nice way of reading a text because they can't see. You press a button and it reads the whole text to you. So all text is in that place, okay? So it's a short form for alternative text. So if you have a picture in a PDF document, how will the blind person understand the picture? The PDF cannot give a picture, right? So you have a description of the picture in the text. So when they read that, the text reader will pick it up and describe the picture to them, right? So the primary purpose of alt text is for visually impaired users to interpret images when that alt text is read by a screen reader, correct? Anybody doubt in the what is alt text? So you must ensure that there is some amount of alt text in your pictures so that a blind or visually impaired person can do. So I don't know if you remember, sometimes you say history taking in medicine when we teach. You can imagine that the person listening to a history or examination is not in the room. He's sitting somewhere else. At the end of the history and exam, the person should be able to visualize this whole person. So, somebody can actually imagine a human being sitting there with the symptoms and how he looks. Same thing. All right. Let's ask the interns. What do you think about this? Is it good? Is it a good alt text? In the text, I was talking about Statue of Liberty, and I wrote this as my alt text. It's a sculpture, woman with a book in one hand, torch in another. And of course, I've taken this AI and made because otherwise somebody will say I copied their image. Not good? Okay. What do you want to intern here today? Okay. Let's ask somebody else. Okay. What would you write if you had to describe Statue of Liberty? Few words. Statue of Liberty, you have some lady standing there. So that will be so that a blind person will read the text and understand, oh, they're talking about Statue of Liberty. What would you say? Only few words you have. Take a guess. Sorry? Say. What would you say? No, the thing is the blind person can't see the thing. No. They are listening to what your description is and they must imagine Statue of Liberty. So you don't have to say, this is Statue of Liberty with blue sky. You can put something else, or you can say in New York City or wherever it is, a large statue, blue sky. So something like that. I'm just saying, I'm not saying this is wrong and this is particularly right, but you have to choose carefully your description of images so that a blind person, when they get that text being read, then they are able to visualize, or they can visualize to some extent what you're trying to show. This is called alt text. I'm not saying this is right and the other one is wrong, but don't for decorative images, like suppose in your presentation, I put some cartoons. There is no need to say this is a cartoon made by R.K. Lakshman, which shows a corrupt politician and honest, ordinary man. Those are just for decoration. Of course, they lose out a bit of that, but don't need to put alt text for decoration. No value. So this is the advice. Imagine that you are reading the content of the page on a telephone. When you get to the image, what would you say to help the listener understanding the point the page is making? So you're explaining to your father, your mother, your friend, your spouse, boyfriend, girlfriend, hey, this is what this is. But as a picture, how would you explain to them the picture over the phone? That's what is alt text. But it can't be, like 10 paragraph long. Few lines is called alt text. Again, this UK government gives guidance on alt text. So we are coming to the last part of our talk. Anybody know what, other than the political organization RSS, what is RSS? That's not. Anybody? Stats people? Residual sum of square. That's in biostats. Yeah. Have you seen on? Sometimes you see a YouTube channel or a TV channel. In the bottom, continuously some line going around. News. So you can also do that. You can say that I'm interested in a particular topic, and I want all the current information on the topic to continuously come to my web page or to my inbox. So aggregating information on a particular topic, and it's continuously coming to my inbox or to my screen. That is called RSS. So RSS stands for RDF Site Summary or Really Simple Syndication. So it's a web feed. So it's an aggregator. In other words, you set up your web page in such a way that all the information from on one topic will keep coming into your web page. Once we had a CU website, a Cochrane website, that's Cochrane CMC Vellore, and we wanted information from Cochrane UK to come. Cochrane UK constantly updates their page every day. So I can't be sitting and updating my web page every day to reflect what kind of information. So we set up an RSS feed. So whatever is there keeps changing. But I can get from various other sites to come to my web page. This is called RSS feed. So you're constantly looking for new content, and you don't have to manually take out the old content and put the new content. It's constantly being updated. So it's built into your browser. So for example, I want to know data visualization. So I Google RSS data visualization. So there is a particular one called FeedSpot, which if I subscribe to, every time there's new information on data visualization, it will come to my screen, computer screen, or it will come to my inbox. Unfortunately, this is paid, so I didn't want to subscribe for it. But because they're taking a lot of effort to collect all the information and give it to you. So examples. This is just a graph of x-axis and y-axis, and there are many softwares for data visualization. As I'm coming to the end, I'm just talking about free software. There are paid software. One is called Tableau. Tableau is like a picture. Tableau is a very good data visualization. R is considered a gold standard, but it's a lot of learning curve because it's like learning a new language on a computer, and you have to, for example, you have to go to that R software, which is free. Then you must download this package, RSS themes, from the net, which is free. Then you must write a code, load the package using library RSS themes. Then you must learn this code by yourself. You must know what this code means. If you run this code, you will get this RSS acceptable graph. So I'm just showing you that coming to an end. Software which you can all use, one is R. And I told you the first main, remember from lecture 1, what is the most common software which people use in R or world over? ggplot. So you can just download ggplot in R and you can make all sorts of graphs as you like. The second one is called Python. No, I used to speak a lot in classes in college. They used to call me a Python, not because of. In Python, there's a sub part called matplotlib for RSS graphs, and it has got its own, what is this? Code. So like the previous one, this is the code for RSS theme in R. Each software will have its own code. Okay, this is the code for Python. The last one, which is online, is called Julia. Many people in Europe use this software called Julia. It's becoming a very popular software. In Julia, to make RSS style graphs, you have to go to the part of it called Mackie, and then this is the code for Mackie, and you'll get graphs like that. Right? So this is just to show that how you can use different software, and each software will tell you that for this kind of graph, this particular platform is required, package is required. These are called packages. Mackie is a package in Julia. Matplotlib is a package in Python. And RSS themes or ggplot is a package in R. And these are the codes for that. Okay. There is again in that website which I showed you initially, our Royal Statistical Society. They give you a specification for RSS feeds, how it should be done. Okay, I've completed. How much time do we have left, Vignesh? 12? Okay, another 5 minutes. I want to summarize the four uh, classes together in 8 points. Okay. Now, there is a gentleman called Stephen Few who has got some nice books. In the first lecture, I gave some two textbooks. One of them was Stephen Few's textbook. He's given some 8 summary points on data visualization. The first one is keep it as KISS is what? Keep it simple, stupid, or not stupid, whatever nice word you want to say. Whatever graphs you make, keep it simple. Simplify. An artist captures emotions with few lines. Don't oversimplify, but keep it as simple as possible. We don't want a tool that gives us 19 options after we chose color graph. Suppose you say, okay, we can make a graph, and you have to choose 19 different. It's too confusing. Keep it as simple as possible. This is a cartoon. I have analyzed contents and simplified the data. It was a good quarter. This is simplification or oversimplified. But I'm over it. That's very good. That's how we don't see any data go all of you go home. No, that's oversimplified. So you must choose between simplification and oversimplification. Second is comparing your data visualization side by side. When you want to compare things, keep the data side by side. Then easy for people to look at, compare. For example, in 2022, this is how the world will look. In a dystopian future, this is how the world will look. The same guy, half year, but the environment has changed significantly. Right? Again, this is an AI generated, just to show contrast. I'm comparing two different time periods and how the environment may look. Nobody knows, but I'm just showing you that. So again, this is a cartoon from R.K. Lakshman. So you're trying to compare. The guy is robbing a bank and he's saying, don't rob the bank. Instead of that, you can just take loans. It's about the same effect. Meaning you don't have to repay any loan. Just rob us that way. Anyway, this is just to show comparisons, to make some fun. Attend. Attend is attention. You want the reader to focus on the part of graph that you want. If you have many colors, pictures, and moving parts in the graph, the reader will be distracted. Human brain doesn't know what to pay attention to, what not to pay. Your job is to make the reader focus their attention on what your message is. So that's the real attention. So what is happening here? Distracted. So your graph should not become like this cell phone which is distracting and there's a car coming. So the principle is attention to what you want, not distraction from what you don't want. Oops. Lastly, sometimes graphs can just help you explore. For example, one of the statisticians gets a large database and they say, okay, let's explore this data. And you present the mean of 20 different continuous variables as mean, standard deviation. And then you're presenting it to the researcher, and he get confused with it. What do these means mean? Instead of presenting as mean and standard deviation, you can put a box plot. The same data in a which picture may be easier to explore also. Because we've never seen the researcher collecting this, Anuka collects data. The first time you're analyzing the data, you don't know the average age, you don't know the number of men and women, you don't know the average systolic blood pressure. Instead of just looking at as mean and standard deviation, you put images in that first one to help you to explore your own data. So your purpose is to explore data, not to teach something else. The first time you're looking, you're trying to understand the bigger picture, the story. That's also an important thing. I just put for exploration. Again, this is R.K. Lakshman. People are after everybody citizenship. May not be a politically correct time to say the graph like this, but going and asking a beggar on the road, where's your Aadhaar card? And there's so many other things. There's a corrupt policeman, there are human beings, and this is the common man in the background. But just show contrast. You can explore many things in one picture. Okay. Perspective. Weber gave a picture of elephant with many people looking at the same elephant, but people's perspectives together gives the final story of the elephant. So that's the same thing. I've taken a different picture from somewhere. Different viewpoints of the same picture may give you a better idea than one person's perspective. So a graph sometimes can be looked at by different people and each of them can give you. And the last point, fifth point, more than what's happening, why it's happening. Can you just, the graph shows this. Can you from the graph you can understand why it's happening? It is possible to understand why. Once more, you can see this is the common man from R.K. Lakshman, and then the politicians are arguing, and he's trying to understand what they're saying and why they're saying that. So I'm just making fun. So what people are saying and why they're saying that from the graph you can understand. Skepticism, not cynicism. Skeptical means okay, maybe there's something wrong. So as a statistician, as doctors, critical appraisal, we always be slightly skeptical of what is being presented. Cynic means everything is useless. That is wrong. Be skeptical of whatever is happening. So, for example, you can find that two people are carving a chair. Maybe they're carpenters who are breaking a chair. But the joke is no, it's a seat sharing agreement in politics. The politicians. So it's just trying to make some fun. So we're trying to be skeptical of the data, but not too cynical about the data. So the last one is how do you respond? You have limited data, you want to share it to somebody. You're not making a graph for your sake. No, that's the most important thing. The graph is for the reader. You're trying to enlighten the reader, not yourself, because you understand your data, your graph. So this is just a joke about that. You can't be enlightened. These are two guys that dug themselves into buried themselves and waiting for enlightenment. And this guy saying, "You're not bald. You can't be enlightened." So that's an enlightenment. So graph is meant for other people. Okay. I think we stop. I'll leave these two graphs here for anybody online who wants to see. It's a bit of. It'll take about 10 minutes to go through that. In the interest of time, I'll stop. So I'll just end with this. It's nothing to do with graphs. It's just a picture which I like. So you shouldn't torture your reader by putting so many things. Let it be enjoyable. The graph and the picture at the end of the day should be an enjoyable experience. Yeah. So these are 4 things we did. And I'll stop with that. Again, all this material is from that Royal Statistical Society website. So you can all go there and access the same thing. For statisticians, for those interested in making any of these graphs, the codes are given there for R. You can copy that code and put it there. You can change your own data and you can use those codes for your own data later. Any questions? Online, any questions?